Three, two, one. Hey guys, what's up? It's Red Coyote here, and you're tuning to the rerun. YouTube's new nostalgia cast. I am Red Coyote. How we doing? So yeah, today we're gonna be reacting to another video from a content creator called Extra, who does a lot of really good analyses of early 2000s nostalgia type stuff, which happens to be right up our alley. So we're going to check it out. We're going to react to it, and we're going to talk about it. But before we get into that, if you're new to the channel, we do 90s and 2000s nostalgia stuff. Sometimes we do stuff, pro gaming, all that. It's all in a nice little package. For that kind of thing, make sure to like and subscribe. We're growing our community all the time. And hey, I'd love to have you with us. That being said, we're going to jump right into the video. We're not going to waste too much time here. And we're going to let this run. Upload one of two here. YouTube's gotten kind of crazy with the... I'll let the man...
Hi, I'm Devin.
I'm Rhonda.
I'm Robin.
I am Joe, not the patient.
Who I am is not what I have.
See me, not my
Caption.
disease.
Up the volume. Okay.
Early 2000s older brother core.
Do these images mean anything to you? Perhaps they're oddly...
Okay, so if you didn't know, this particular video is looking at aesthetic called Older Brother Core. It's basically, remember when the early 2000s were edgy with the wallet chain, ugly Oakley sunglasses, Mountain Dew and the monster and the ugly tribal tech, all that kind. It's that. So we're going to check it out.
familiar, nostalgic. Maybe they bring up some distant childhood memory of playing for hours as player 2. If so, you aren't alone. Older Brother Core has exploded recently and is pretty much inescapable online. But as I tried to find out why, things got even weirder. I uncovered some of the strangest trends and aesthetics from the 2010s that you've either forgotten about or wish you didn't remember. Starting off with galaxy fits. If you made a Venn diagram comparing someone who used to wear these and someone with 3 of these, it'd just be a circle. Except for this guy, we'll put him somewhere over here. You'd find these kinds of clothes everywhere online, printed onto cheap hoodies from sites like Amazon and Alibaba. And they haven't gone away or anything. In fact, the combination of AI and dropshipping today has yielded promising results. But while it's more of an ironic thing now, that wasn't the case in 2013. Galaxy print leggings, shirts, shoes, phone cases, nothing was safe. At the time though, it was relatively tame, especially compared to another movement called swag.
Oh no.
The Zendaya hat theory. A series of conspiracies surrounding the mysterious appearance of a comically sized hat in 2014. Some suggest that Tom Holland lives inside it, hence why I've never seen him and it in the same room. Others believe that, combined with the more recent appearance of a white hat, it symbolizes yin and yang. That Zendaya is composed of 2 distinct personalities, or entities. I believe this to be true. On one hand, you have the famous actor and personality, and on the other, Zendaya's swag era.
Hey!
Outside of these interesting photos, many others fell victim to the swag era, posing in denim, colourful t-shirts and flat caps. The look first appeared in the late 2000s and was heavily tied to things like jerk music. It's actually had a mini revival more recently, with artists like Xavier So Based and Fresh Boy Swag taking clear inspiration from the fashion.
Wow.
I'd say that
Those
overall,
shoes.
it's looked back on pretty fondly. It encouraged people to express themselves and really get experimental. Unfortunately, that isn't true for every fashion trend in the 2010s. What you're looking at here is an endangered species. The urban lumberjack hipster barista guy from 2012.
Hey.
Once upon a time, you could spot them on every street corner. A handful of beard wax, an open MacBook to their right, and a coffee to their left. Other identifying features were beanies, flannels, and suspenders. Those that pushed through the 2010s can still be found today if you're lucky. Usually wearing a wry smile as they charge you $40 for a cheeseburger. I've seen people point out that this look was kind of the...
I'll admit, I like the hipster look. That being said, $40 for... I'll punch you in the...
precursor to Safe Sleazy. Being a much more modern cryptid, I won't go into too much detail on that yet, but I'm willing to bet that you, or someone you love, has run into one of these creatures before. Anyway, this video wouldn't be complete if I didn't mention hypebeasts. This was, far and away, the most expensive fashion trend of the decade. From Off-White to Supreme, people were reselling branded sneakers and even branded bricks for thousands. This was different to swag, which was accessible to pretty much anyone. Here, the focus was solely on brands and how prominently you could display their logos. The staying power of streetwear companies like Supreme was so strong that people could build their entire careers around them. I mean, in no other environment could a song called Gucci Gang get 1 billion views. Regardless, almost all of these outfits were ruined by the use of skinny, ripped jeans. When combined with a baggy hoodie, you instantly nerfed yourself and developed bizarre, childlike proportions. The resurgence of large, baggy jeans today seems like a direct retaliation against the founding principles of the hypebeast. With that being said, let's talk about why baggy jeans are back.
Tinkos. Those were the best.
I'm sure this doesn't come as a shock to you, but older brother core isn't the only thing with core slapped at the end of it. Clean core, cottage core.
I was gonna say meat core as a joke, but that's also a thing.
I've always found this phenomenon really interesting. On one hand, it's useful for categorizing and searching up niche aesthetics, but on the other hand, you have people blogging about raw meat.
So where did this whole core thing start?
Well, the term itself comes from the hardcore punk genre of the 80s. It eventually expanded to various other movements such as grindcore and thrashcore. Over the following decades, core became shorthand for any cohesive aesthetic, mood, or subculture. It wasn't just limited to music. And that's how we arrived at older brother core. Photographs of gaming setups from the 2000s and 2010s, advertisements, and fridges full of Monster energy drinks. You'll see these presented on TikTok and Instagram as slideshows paired with
Dude, I love that. Like, take me back. Chugging a monster box? Hell yeah.
melancholic guitar riffs. Or maybe it's just a video of some 16-year-old wearing jorts and a tap-out t-shirt. After all, the fashion side of it has become just as big. At its core is the revival of skate and streetwear brands from the 2000s. Jinko jeans, Spitfire, those chunky DC shoes, basically just a custom character from Tony Hawk's Underground, if you took away the skateboard and gave them a link tree and a mango vape.
Not wrong.
But what is it about these images that's so powerful? 20 years ago, you'd say the smell, but it's something else.
It also got me wondering, what would be the modern equivalent of older brother core?
I'm boxing up. Boys, let's go.
What?
Get out, I'm practicing.
What's that?
They're action figures, okay? Don't touch them, they're used.
Why is Pikachu in a jar?
You want answers? Try this.
Wow.
Here, caffeine, 0 sugar, 40 cents per serve. I could take this to the
Okay,
gym.
so it's just
With
his
Code
gamer
Mint, I got
subs.
free samples
God
with
damn.
free shipping and 10% off
Why?
everything. Go before it gets patched.
These photos capture a very specific vibe from a time period that's already nostalgic to a lot of people. It's the experience of peeking into your older brother's room and being almost mystified by the stuff inside. A console you were rarely allowed to play. Instruments you weren't allowed to touch. The photos themselves add another layer, taken with grainy digital cameras that reveal the dusty haze of freshly punched drywall, or even freshly punched cones. I'm not surprised so many
I've been trying to find stuff because I think that'd be kind of fun just to stuff. Let me know if that's something you'd be.
people have resonated with this aesthetic because it's so universal. Growing up in the 2000s and early 2010s, you definitely knew someone that fit the older brother core archetype. A room full of new metal posters, skateboards,
friend
and a
that
360
rocks
running
this
nothing but
fucking
Halo 3 and Black Ops. As you might expect, certain foods are associated with the look. You've got big hitters like Doritos and Burger King, combined with drinks like Mountain Dew and Monsters. You can't just grab these today and call it older brother core though. Products had a certain look back then that has all but disappeared. I'm talking about the Halo 3 Burger King meal, Doritos packets with the heart rate monitor, Guitar Hero Slurpees. 2010 was the last time you could look cool drinking Mountain Dew.
Okay, real talk though, if they brought these cups back for if freaking Taco Bell was like, yo, we're doing freaking Halo cups, immediate.
Apart from maybe a few months in 2014. I'm interested to hear what...
Okay, I say that, but they'd run out super quick and a bunch of freaking scalpers and resellers would get hold of a bunch of them, sell them for stupid prices online. I'm sure they do already.
What you guys think about the whole older brother core thing though? Are these outfits a red flag? Do you relate to it at all? Either way, not every 2010s aesthetic is as universal, like pool core, which describes photos of pools. As an offshoot of liminal spaces though, it isn't as simple as just taking a photo of your pool. It needs to have an unsettling, eerie atmosphere, almost like you've come across it in a dream. At least, that's how these images work. Jared Pike's Dream Pools are a series of 3D renders that many say produce feelings of dread and uneasiness. A lot of this comes from the fact that they never show you the full picture. There's always a corner or a hallway that trails off into the unknown, contributing to the sense of unease and mystery. This effect has been so strong that people have gone on to make entire games about it, set in the same endless rooms. Since we're on the topic of video games though, let's talk about
I don't do horror
Now,
games.
I never thought there was
I'll
anything
cry.
special about how games looked in the 2010s. We didn't really have an equivalent to the iconic low poly look from the 90s and 2000s, or the pixelated titles from the 80s. I was, of course, wrong, and it turns out the decade had its own set of bizarre visual trends, an entire video's worth, in fact. But for now, I've picked out my personal favorites, some of the best and some of the worst. Whether you played Jet Set Radio in the 2000s or more recent games inspired by it, you're likely aware of Shibuya Punk. Also known as grind fiction, it describes a wide variety of video games featuring graffiti, inline skating, and skateboarding. You'll see a lot of vibrant colors, neon-lit urban settings, and street culture. While it started in the early 2000s, it experienced a revival in the 2010s and is still going strong today. But unlike any other styles in this video, it's tied to a very specific location. One that deeply influenced the genre and helped create its cult-like following.
To truly understand how this happened, I needed to see it for myself.
These streets were the inspiration behind Jet Set Radio, the pioneer of grind fiction. Set in a vast, chaotic metropolis, you play as members of a graffiti gang, fighting back against authorities and rivals as you expand your territory. The game was unique, not just for its cel-shaded graphics, but also its locations and fashion. Take, for instance, Shibuya-cho, one of the game's 3 main districts. It shares many similarities with the aesthetic's namesake, and my first stop. Shibuya is widely considered the heart of Tokyo. Its vibrant and social nature make it a melting pot for fashion, music, and art. As a result, it's the perfect backdrop for a game like Persona 5. Released in 2016, it helped bring Shibuya Punk back into the spotlight. Just like Jet Set Radio, you're dropped into a colourful urban setting, overlaid with a dynamic punk-inspired UI. Persona does a great job channeling the energy of its real-world counterparts, the busyness of Shibuya Crossing, its tightly packed side streets. But Shibuya isn't the only inspiration for the genre, nor is it the only place featured in Persona 5. After all, grind fiction has a rebellious, edgy undertone that can only be found in Shinjuku.
Extra mint inside of Mint
Here, I'm
Collectibles.
good.
Housing Tokyo's red light district and a booming nightlife, Shinjuku's atmosphere is completely different. There's an overwhelming amount of ads and billboards, lit by
I'm not saying it wouldn't be a lot of fun. I'm saying I'd get overstimulated real quick and I would just start
thousands of neon lights. Its chaotic influence became even clearer as the aesthetic re-emerged in the 2010s. Look no further than Inkopolis from Splatoon. Locations like the Plaza and Inkopolis Square feature the same energetic displays of lights and advertising. The gameplay echoes Shibuya Punk's elements even more, focusing on streetwear, youth culture, and colourful self-expression. The spray can is replaced by an ink shooter, but the premise is the same. It was awesome to walk around Tokyo and spot the similarities between these games and their inspiration. Even better though, Shibuya Punk didn't go anywhere after its revival, and the 2010s were just the beginning. Hi-Fi Rush and Bomb Rush Cyberfunk released in 2023, having art styles that look just as timeless as Jet Set Radio. Oh, and Jet Set Radio is getting a reboot soon. If we're talking about grind fiction though, we have to talk about Fruitiga Metro and why it's also making a comeback. In the early 2010s, Metro was extremely popular in music, gaming, and all sorts of other.
You know, it's weird to think about because 2010s weren't that long ago. You know what it feels like for us being halfway through the 2020s are rough. But the cycle nostalgic getting faster, iterating much faster. process. Might even say, oh, that was nostalgic. Now it's nostalgic. 10 degrees of Kevin Bacon type.
Media. Featuring glossy vector graphics and patterns, there was a lot of overlap between it and Shibuya Punk. But Metro was even more widespread, meaning there's a ton of things you'd recognize it from, like Just Dance 3 and 4. From their menus to dances, both share the same colourful aesthetic. There's fluid shapes and flourishes in the background that nicely complement the series' atmosphere. People have described this look as a subgenre of Fruitiger Metro called Musica Metro. It's a lot softer than the other examples we'll cover, and uses more pastels and, unsurprisingly, music-related icons. For the most part though, when people reference Fruitiger Metro, they mean stuff like this. Any design with these maximalist 2D patterns. The gaming series I see mentioned the most is Little Big Planet. Looking at the box art and promotional material for the 3 games, you can see why. Explosions of abstract shapes, peppered with various items and instruments. Alongside Domo, Sackboy has become the aesthetics mascot. Now, when Metro emerged in the late 2000s, it was kind of the edgy older brother to Fruitiger Aero.
I would love Domo.
It catered to a younger audience and sold them on the idea that this was what being a teenager felt like. Naturally, those kids grew up and still thought it looked cool. And to be honest, they proved that it still does. Sitting at over 1.4 million views, Romance Planet's Fall from the Sky music video is shot entirely in the style. It's even capped at 360p. Pink Pantherus, with a more mainstream influence, has also drawn from the aesthetic. The Illegal music video features shots that mirror the iPod Shuffle commercials. And Nice to Meet You has the same pastel flourishes as Musica Metro. But not everything can be colourful and upbeat. Gaming in the 2010s was plagued by an issue that affected countless titles. There's a good chance you hated this trend at the time, but we'll see. Let me reintroduce you to the infamous piss filter. Sometimes green if the devs had eaten asparagus, but mostly an all-consuming yellow. The weirdest thing is, I didn't even notice it at the time. I just accepted it as the look for shooters and racing games. Now that my brain is developed, I can tell that the sky isn't normally yellow, but this revelation hasn't stopped me from enjoying these titles. Why? Because it was applied to some of the best games of all time. Fallout New Vegas, Deus Ex 3, Grand Theft Auto 4. With that being said, have a look at them without the filter. Here's the Mojave Wasteland as 2010 intended, and here it is with the tint removed. Deus Ex 3 is even more noticeable. In fact, it's the reason the term even exists. Within a few months of its release, an article drops detailing a mod that, quote, enhances graphics, removes piss filter. In fairness, the original game is best described as severely dehydrated. As far as I'm aware, it was easily the yellowest, but please challenge me on that in the comments. I'm sure there's way worse out there. Anyway, there's a valid argument to be made here in support of the PP filter, that being its contributions to a game's atmosphere. Like, it definitely works in a post-apocalyptic environment like Fallout. Fallout 3 felt like you were perpetually stuck in a radstorm. There's a sickly green hue that hangs over everything, making your surroundings feel contaminated, or rather, irradiated. Kind of like early Chris Chan videos. Not everyone has this as an out though, as many games only used it to mask lighting limitations or just jump on the trend. It was a quick way to convey that your title was gritty and serious. Call of Duty achieves a similar thing today with its item shop. Something strange happened in the 2010s. While most of the corporate world moved away from the experimental design, marketing, and aesthetics of the 2000s, we saw a revival of several styles from the past. And weirdly enough, this hasn't been without controversy. Take Vector Heart, for example. Many of you will recognize this style from the box art of the Wipeout games. It's a futuristic, striking aesthetic with sharp angles and abstract shapes. While it first appeared way back in the 90s, it saw a modest return in the 2010s, especially in gaming. Several logos and interfaces drew obvious inspiration from the style. Unfortunately, jumping forward to today, one company would take a bit too much inspiration. Now, when I first saw Bungie's Marathon reboot, I was pretty excited. It had the vibrant look of Mirror's Edge, coupled with environments and graphics that echoed the principles of Vector Heart. To me, it seems like an evolution of its 2010s resurgence, and it was, but not for the right reasons. Fernhook, a graphic designer from Scotland, noticed some suspicious similarities between her 2017 artwork and several of the game's environments. Similarities really isn't the right word though, because it was just copy and paste. While most of the game's assets were made internally, this didn't go down well. I feel like this happens a lot now. A big studio hints at a return to form or some innovative new style, but can't pull it off without heavily relying on nostalgia or just outright borrowing from someone else's work. But enough about Vector Heart, because you've definitely seen these images before. And no, this isn't Fruitiger Aero. Solarpunk gained traction in the 2010s and shares a similar focus on an idealized utopian future. In other words, what society would be like if everyone hit subscribe. It emerged as an alternative take on the futuristic city, and it still kind of is. Just look at Wild Robot from 2024. The whole premise revolves around nature and technology coexisting harmoniously, reflected in both the characters and environments. In the 2010s, you could see this in Black Panther and various other movies set in the near future. At the heart of Solarpunk is architecture that integrates nature, foliage wrapping around skyscrapers, expansive grassy plains covered in solar panels. The name being a spin-off of Cyberpunk isn't a coincidence. Many characterize it as a direct response to Cyberpunk's darker and heavily commercialized tone. I'm curious though, would you rather live here, or do you think Solarpunk is the way to go? Speaking of cool, futuristic aesthetics from the 2010s, Dorfik. It's a little more obscure, but depending on what video games you've played, there's a good chance you've seen it before. It describes a design style dominated by abstract shapes and technology, soft white backdrops, and above all else, the color orange. A great example is the Hexbug toy line. They looked delicious, they were delicious.
Dude. Okay. You guys want a Hexbug video? I keep seeing stuff I want to make a video about.
You'd find Dorfik on ads too, and even UI. Look back at the eShop, when Nintendo's consoles were still colourful. It shares the same futuristic, glossy arrangement of gradients and shapes, and again, it's mostly orange. As far as games go, you probably saw it coming, but Mirror's Edge. The game as a whole has one of the cleanest art styles of all time. Even today, it's hard to believe the original came out way back in 2008. As you explore, you'll run into plenty of offices that have adopted the look. Bright orange interiors and slick architecture. Jelly Jump and Super Hot are other examples, having the same sterile white environments and orange accents. All in all, the Dorfik aesthetic held out until around 2016, as companies began committing to flat minimalism. Vaporwave is one of the coolest aesthetics the internet has ever made. Starting in the early 2010s as a music genre, its unique retro-futuristic visuals quickly took on a life of their own. Video games, YouTube intros, album covers. Its visuals were oddly soothing and dreamlike, with elements layered over pink sunsets and endless grids. Drawing from the 80s and 90s, you'd often see old computer pop-ups, statues and brands. But where did Vaporwave come from? Is it possible to track such a huge movement down to a single song or image? Maybe, but it's complicated. On July 20th, 2009, a YouTube user called Sunset Corp posted a 2-minute long track titled Nobody Here. The song itself was relatively simple, a slowed down sample of an 80s pop song. But when paired with the visuals, it became something more. In the foreground is a grainy loop of a twisting rainbow road, layered over footage of the New York skyline. It creates a surreal, almost hypnotic viewing experience, which is reflected in the comments. They're filled with people feeling nostalgic for an era they never lived through. I'd say this phenomenon is the reason Vaporwave eventually exploded. People have called it anemoia, defined as longing for a time you never experienced. Vaporwave tapped into this feeling with a reimagined vision of the past, layered under irony and low-fidelity jazz. The funny thing is though, the creator of Nobody Here didn't intend to kickstart an entire genre. The song just happens to perfectly capture all of its themes, in the visuals, music, and even the channel name. While earlier tracks undoubtedly fit the sound, Nobody Here helped shape Vaporwave into both a visual and auditory medium. Let me know which of these aesthetics you'd bring back and which you'd leave in the 2010s. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh, okay. I meant to pause it. Yeah, man, I love all of those. Most of them. I still mess with a lot of them. Vaporwave and all that. Definitely check out Extra. Especially if nostalgia stuff we got into back in the day. So if you're into that like I am, definitely get like and subscribe. It's just, you know, how weird the 2010s were. Yeah, I'm gonna leave the video here for you guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments as always. And hey, if you enjoyed the video, then please make sure to subscribe. Like I said, growing our hey, love to have you with us. Anyway, guys, thank you. Bye.